All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming, braving the weather this morning. We've got a great crowd this morning. We got looks like some agency folks, some industry people, directors, producers. Got a good mix of everyone here. I just want to give a quick shout out to the Gear 7 team for helping put this on. Specifically, Taylor Red, our marketing coordinator, Adam Sadler, our director of business development, and Justin Wiley, our technical director. And everyone else on the team. This is a big effort, and we really appreciate everyone's help on this. So, welcome to Directions and Donuts, the Producers Edition. This year, we're going to be expanding this series out to different general positions. So this is our first one with producers. We'll be kind of expanding from there, maybe changing some of the names. Producers and pastries, editors and egg McMuffins. I don't know. We'll see. We'll do a survey after and see what everyone's feeling. And then just a reminder: at the end of our session here, we'll open up to a Q&A. And then for anyone who hasn't seen some of the expanded facilities here, you're welcome to walk through our studio, check out some of the new build-outs we have. We have some demos set up over at Gear 7 as well. So we'll walk through that as we wrap everything up. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Wesley Stebbins Perry and Christen Pinkston. And we've had the pleasure of working with them a handful of times through Gear 7. And they've worked with us. They do their own projects, do projects with other production companies, and so they'll walk you through that. But if we can all just give a big round of applause to welcome them in. Y'all can jump right in.
Here we go. They gave me the clicker, so we'll see how this goes, everybody. Okay, so we just kind of wanted to start off, I guess, by telling a little backstory, like how we got into the industry and that little journey.
Yeah. So I always wanted to work in the music business. That was my passion. My dad worked in the music business, so I decided to go to MTSU, study music business. I needed an internship my final semester, and I kind of like procrastinated last minute, and I'm like, oh, nothing's left. I went to my dad, and I was like, hey, do you have any friends? And he was like, let me check in with this guy. So he got me an internship at Revolution Pictures. I didn't even know what production was. I was like, oh, okay, well, they do music videos, and I want to work in the music business, so let's do it. And yeah, the rest is history, pretty much.
Yeah. So I went to college, but didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. It was one of those things like you have to go, but you're still trying to figure that all out. I thought about doing all these different things, and I realized that all of the things I was interested in doing were jobs characters had on television shows that I loved. So I'm like, okay, here's the common denominator. Let's try film. So I went to school for that, graduated in 2012 from Georgia State University, but really didn't have like an in or like a foot in the door to get into the industry at all. And to be honest, like I just didn't really know how that worked. Like how do you get in? How do you start? Which led to a really amazing cubicle job in the phone industry for a couple of years. And I decided like I'm gonna give this like one last go. I submitted so many internships. I was like, if it doesn't work out now, wasn't meant to be, and I'll move on. And also Revolution Pictures said yes, and so I moved to Nashville in 2014 and started interning. So yeah.
I'm so glad that you did.
I did. And this is just a little about how like we started working together. So in 2014, Chris was PMing a job here in town, and I got hired on as a PA, and that was the first time we worked together.
It was a horrendous job for me. I pretty much blacked it out. So, but so glad that you were there.
Yeah, I know. I'm really in your memory. But after that, she hired me for something else to PA, and it was the night before the shoot, and I was like, I really don't want to do this. It's so annoying. But I'm like, hey, has the call sheet gone out yet? Like, I didn't get anything. And she responded, and she was just like, hey, I'm really so sorry, but like, I forgot I hired you on this job completely. The call sheet went out a long time ago. And so she was like, if you want to come tomorrow, like, I'll send you the call sheet and you can totally come. If not, I have this other video coming up, and you can do that. So
And the other one was better, right? Like
it was like a Chris Stapleton video.
Right.
It was a lot
he
better.
got out of like an overnight or something because
Yeah,
I
it
forgot.
worked out.
Yeah. And then we in 2019 we just started really exclusively working together. We really realized what I'm not good at, Wesley's great at, and vice versa. And we
for
just
sure.
kind of got this flow, and it was just like we realized like we don't really want to work without each other on these jobs.
Yeah,
It's just
now we're really codependent.
yeah.
But essentially, all of our mentors who were producers, they were producing by themselves. And we realized when we were producing on our own, it really requires all of your mental capacity, all of your time. You're always working, you're always on your phone because you want to do the best job possible. But essentially, everything else kind of falls to the wayside. So in an effort to create better balance, not only in our work life, but at home, in our personal life, we kind of wanted to team up and at least give that a try. And I'm really glad we did because it has changed a lot of things for us, I think.
Yeah, we had never seen anyone working in that way before. And, it was like once we started having somebody, a partner, it's like you make a doctor's appointment and it's like, oh, well, I have a scout this day, but I don't necessarily have to cancel my doctor's appointment because Wesley can be there and he can cover it. And it really did create balance, and it's been nice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Let's see.
Our next slide.
Oh, this is-
A lot of what we do is really just running around screaming for help.
The videos are of Chris screaming literally for help in various places where we were filming.
just,
Um,
yeah. Just moments of desperation, screaming for help. Also, a lot of what we do is
hiding and eating.
We were going through our photos, and I was like, I have so many pictures of us hiding somewhere and eating a meal.
Like Zaxby's, Buffalo Wild Wings, sushi. It doesn't matter. Like, we're always in the most random place eating something.
Yeah, and then we put the slide together, and we were like, it's ice cream, pizza, Zaxby's. We're like, wow, we're not.
The epitome of health and
Yeah,
balance. Wow, look at us go.
I will say on the last project we worked together, I feel like every time it was like, hey, this client know what, where you guys at? Like, oh, let's go to the crafty table. Like, all right, let's go back to the crafty table. Let's meet up.
Yep,
Let's go through some snacks.
exactly. You need it to get through the day.
Yeah, we really like food.
But really, here's a little bit about what we do. So Chris and I work in short form. So we work on music videos, commercials, live content, so concert capture, and various commercial work.
Yeah, we're involved in every aspect in the project from start to finish. So we're there kind of at its inception. We get the creative, we make a budget, and then it's our job, along with the director and the crew, to bring it to life.
Yeah, essentially any logistical component of the project is what the producer kind of oversees. So hiring the crew, insurance, gear, so many different things. And kind of our mantra for being a producer on like a shoot day is you're the first one in, you want to be the first one there on set to make sure everything's landing and getting set up the way it needs to be, and you're the last one out because you want to make sure you left it better than you found it.
Yeah, and I try and be the first one in.
Third one in, but last one out, so it works out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a little bit about what we do, and then here is a little bit about like the current projects we've been working on. So this is just like a little snapshot of various artists and brands that we have been fortunate enough to work with throughout our career so far. Last year in 2022, when we were looking back at kind of like a recap, we worked with 28 different production companies and produced 70 projects. So we were pretty shocked
Yeah.
at that. But yeah, we've been fortunate to work with some really cool folks.
Yeah. And these are just, we were talking through kind of some of our favorite projects. These are some of my most memorable. And the reason being is not necessarily the outcome of the project, but what went into making it, the process of making it. Like, for instance, the Dan and Shay, I Should Probably Go to Bed. That was an amazing project. It was the first big job back after COVID, and we all came together, and we had a day of pre-lighting and pre-build, then a day of pre-lighting and shooting, then a day of shooting in Murfreesboro and in Nashville, and there were all these logistics, and we really fought for the money on that one.
Yeah.
They gave us a great budget, and the visual really turned out to be one of my favorites that we've ever done. And then, Kenny Chesney, he always takes us on an adventure, which is so fun. The Camping World projects, they're comedy, which we don't get to do a lot of comedy. And yeah, the Worldwide Beautiful, that one was really fun to make. We were working with our friends, and when we were making it, I was just kind of going through the motions, and we were prepping. And then when Alex, the director, showed me the first cut, I was like, whoa, like that's actually really good. I just saw, I was like, that's awesome. And then we ended up getting an ACM for it. So yeah, that was really cool. Yeah.
And then here's just a couple of projects that really stood out to me that we've worked on. So like one being the jockey commercial with Luke Bryan. That was really pretty soon after COVID as well. And the production company was kind of secretive about it, like didn't really tell us all this information. And then we found out it was a Super Bowl spot. So that was kind of cool.
No big deal.
But yeah, some of these other music videos, like the Kelsey Ballerini one, that one was really fun because we were all out of town in Knoxville, in her hometown, doing that. So it was really special for her, like the artist, to be back, where she grew up and in these really special places. And then, like Chris was saying, just the way logistically some of these things came about, like the Katy Perry, Thomas Rhett, all of the fabric in that video was driven here from Los Angeles just because of the resources they have there. So these two really incredible art assistants from LA had like a little road trip to bring it all here. Just kind of like fun little things that make them stand out to you.
Yeah.
And I know we'll do Q&A at the end, but just to jump in, have most of these projects come to you guys through production companies, through directors, through labels? What's the typical avenue for that reach out? Because I know we're a production company, and we've hired you for projects that we've already had clients for and everything. But I know you probably have different avenues of those lead generation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You want to lead the way?
Sure, yeah. So the industry really kind of has changed over the past 5 years or so. And directors are not repped by a production company sometimes, and they own their own production company. So a lot of times we just get a director reach out and say, hey, this is our project. And then, sometimes it's production companies.
I would say for music videos, it would mainly, most of the time, it's the director reaching out.
Mm-hmm.
But for commercial work, I would say it's mostly the production company reaching out to us for that.
Yeah.
Let's see. Because it's Directors and Donuts, we wanted to talk about kind of like the relationship between producers and directors and how that works. So one of the things is, like, our client essentially for the project in our minds is the director. It's their vision that we're trying to bring to life for them. And so they're our number one client, but also they have clients that they're answering to. So that could be the label, the brand, the agency, all of those things. So they're like our boss's boss. So essentially they're our clients as well. So we're just trying to, balance all of those asks and requests and make them happen.
Yeah, it feels like first and foremost, our client is the director. And then inadvertently, the production company or agency or label is our boss's boss.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of managing, requests and accommodating a lot.
Yeah.
We also think, there definitely has to be a mutual respect. We really respect the director and their vision, and we hope that they respect and trust us as well and what we're saying. Hey, this is possible, this isn't possible, and really both respect that.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you all typically like to navigate crazy director requests? Because that always comes up, right, on projects where you've got 2,000 for an art spend and they need 5, or they're pushing for 5.
Yeah.
Right.
How do you typically like to navigate things like that? Because it is always the balance that.
It's like a little dance.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
one of those things where each director communicates in their own way, like each producer does. Like every producer has their own style of doing it. So if another producer came up here, they would have a lot of different outlooks on things, I'm sure. But directors, you kind of have to find like their language, and you really have to bring it to them in the way that speaks best to them.
Yeah, there's a lot of communicating. We communicate so much with our directors and the clients and the labels and the crew, and especially with the directors, you really have to learn their style and how to approach them. And you know, sometimes you get a crazy director request, and depending on the project, you're like, yes, I want to do that too. Like, that sounds awesome. So yeah, you just have to really learn specifically communicating with each person.
Yeah. So it's a tricky balance, especially with the client and the people who are paying for it, and then, you know, the requests that come in, and it can be a delicate dance for sure.
Yes.
For sure. Some just, you know, they understand the logistics that go into it more, so they maybe be more open-minded to the restrictions that could be there. And other directors are purely creatively focused, and so that's just a different mindset. So you approach it differently with each of them.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like luckily for us, like the directors and clients that we have are pretty seasoned, and they know when they're asking for something outrageous.
Yeah, that's true. Pretty obvious.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I think the last thing for the relationship is that, like, you're spending a lot of time with them, so you want to have somebody that you can have fun with. You know, like when crazy requests come up or something, like I feel like the producer and the director have to respect each other, but also have a good time with one another in the end, or it can make for a little bit of an uphill battle.
Yeah, and I know people say this is tricky all the time, but like the people that we work with, and especially the directors that we work with, they are our friends.
Yeah.
Like, I would consider all of them a friend. So, and yeah, we just have a lot of fun working. So, yeah.
Let's see.
Okay.
Next
our
thing
tips.
is kind of like our little tips, if they're worth anything. Tips for when you're starting, tips for when you are kind of like in the mode of producing already. So I'll let you start this one off.
So the first thing I would say to someone that wants to get into the industry is intern. Is figure out as many internships as you can get. I really don't know where I would be right now if I hadn't had gotten that internship. There's just no telling. So I think it's such a great opportunity, and you really learn in the field more than you do anywhere else in this business. If you are on set for the first time, which doesn't look like many people in here are having that, but for those watching remotely, don't stand or sit in Video Village. It's one of those things, it's like I feel like isn't taught anywhere, but like you get on set and there's production assistants or interns being in Video Village, and it's like, I don't want to be that person that's like, hey, can you move out of this space? You know?
For those who may not know, do you mind explaining Video Village and who's typically in there?
So Video Village is on set. It's the area where they've set up monitors for like the client, agency, director, to watch what we're filming. So like in real time, they're seeing what we're capturing, and they can give notes and give, you know, their input and direction. Essentially, it's all the higher ups, and so when you're first starting out, it's not the place for you to be.
Yeah.
There's other things to be doing. Yeah.
Right. And I used to always tell production assistants, if you aren't doing anything, because sometimes you will be on set, especially like on a soundstage set, and there really is nothing to do sometimes. And if that's the case, I always tell them, just hide with your walkie. Yeah, don't let anyone see you sitting around. Just go hide somewhere.
Hide somewhere till we need you.
And be on walkie.
Exactly. Another thing, if you're just starting out, it's really hard when you ask at the end of the day if you're all finished and can you go home.
It's the kiss of death.
We unfortunately will probably unsave your number. We will not call you again. It's just the day is long. Like, it is a long day. I feel like working in this industry in any position or role, like, it is a commitment in many ways. And I feel one thing to know when you're getting into it is that you're committing your day essentially to this, you know? And we want to get out of there just as badly as everybody else at the end of the day. We don't want to keep anyone around. So we'll let you know when it's
Yeah.
it's time to go home.
Just don't ever
Mhm.
ask if you can go home. Like, obviously, if you're like sick or something, but
Yeah, I mean, if you're
when the
sick,
day-
please ask. Yeah,
please
we want
ask
you to go
if
home.
can. When the day is wrapping up, the question of, so can we go home now? It's like, oh,
It's tough to hear.
yeah.
Yeah.
But on to more general things, like if you're interested in producing, like I would say our biggest thing would be find a mentor and maybe find many of them. Like I said earlier, every producer really does things so differently, and every person I learned from, there's little nuggets to take from all of them. Things that really connect with your personality and your workflow, things that you would have never thought to approach it that way. And so
Yeah.
you kind of take that on. Oh, that really worked. Let me try that next time when I do it too. I just think working with multiple people, and I guess that could apply to any position. Like if you're interested in art department, work with a bunch of different art directors. They're all going to work differently. They all have a different style and vision. And then you can kind of learn what works for you.
Yeah, I feel like I'm kind of like a melting pot of all of the amazing producers that I worked for.
Yeah.
So I feel really lucky that I had the opportunity to work with so many producers coming up.
Do you guys feel like you still have mentors you reach out to? Because I know personally, I mean, every now and then I'll hit a situation, I'm like, I don't know if I've ever actually done that specific thing. And I have some
Right.
folks I can still reach out to. And do you still feel like you have people you connect with, even
I
at this
think
stage?
so.
Yeah.
Yes, 100%. I mean, we're always learning. We're always, asking questions. I mean, we had a question the other day about a commercial we recently did, and
Yeah.
we were like, I've actually never come across this before. And, we're reaching out to people that have been in the industry for years, trying to get answers. It's also nice because we riff off of each other so much. Like, that's another great thing about our
Right.
partnership is, like, we're constantly, what do you think about this? What would you
Yeah.
do in this situation? Who's good for this role? So we've been mentoring each other for years.
Long time. Yeah, long time.
Okay, so we're also saying find your tribe to grow with. I love this one because I feel like we have kind of a group that we came up with. We have directors and producers and ADs that we grew with, and
Yeah.
we were working on really small projects 10 years ago, and now we're working on larger projects and commercials, and it's been really fun seeing a younger crowd kind of coming up and finding their tribe and working on projects together, and it's really special to have that. And Nashville has a market for that that's so unique to really any market that we've worked in.
Yeah, for sure. And then kind of like off of like finding your tribe to grow with, like as you are working, we're big advocates for being honest about your experience level. So if someone hits you up to produce this project, I mean, it may be really exciting and you may really want to do it, but sometimes think through like, do you really have the experience level to take that on? Because if you don't, it really is a disservice to yourself. It's a disservice to the client, and it really is better to just kind of like set that boundary and be like, I really appreciate you reaching out, but I just don't know if I'm quite ready for that yet. Are you looking to have like a coordinator on this project? I would love to be a part of it. I just think we find we really respect that a lot more. And
Yeah.
we've done that many times, like coming up, like if a project would come our way that we just didn't feel like we were up to taking on, just kind of like setting that boundary up front.
Yeah, I will say from my perspective in hiring producers, that is a very commendable thing to bring in. Because there's a lot of times where it's like, I haven't done that specific thing. I've done this, which is adjacent, and I know how
Yeah.
I would do it. But full disclosure, I haven't done that specific thing. And a lot of times that's enough to be like, all right, well, we can walk that in together. Or,
Right.
yeah, it might not be a good fit. Or,
Right.
you know.
Yeah, like if somebody
Yeah.
came to us with a project that was a movie, we'd be like, oh, even if we really wanted to do it, we'd be like, that's
Don't think we're the
not our
right
wheelhouse.
pair for
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Let's see. You got to be ready to fully commit.
Yeah. Like we said earlier, it's a big time commitment.
Yeah.
The shoot days are long, they're 12-hour days. So if producing or working in this industry is something you're interested in, just kind of be prepared that it's a commitment.
Yeah. I mean, this might not be good thing to say, but our job is our lifestyle. I mean, we
Yeah.
live it, we breathe it, and we're finding balance, and we're constantly working on finding balance. But it's, last night I shut my laptop at 9:40 p.m., and that's not, something that never happens.
Right.
And, I don't want to give out the message that I'm like, work all the time. But it's long hours and it's stressful, but as long as you have people that you like working with you, it's fun. So as long as you're having fun,
Yeah. And then also like just being reliable, having a good attitude, and then when you're starting out as a producer, the budgets are smaller. So I would say be prepared to wear many hats. So like you will be shopping craft service, you will be finding extras, you will be making the call sheet, you're the location scout, like you just don't have the financial means to outsource that.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the beginning, like it's another way I feel like you learn so much is because you're having to do all of it.
Yeah.
And then as you work your way onto bigger projects, you're able to have that support around you, which is
Yeah.
nice.
I'll never forget the last job that I did that I really did that. I was like showing up to set and I had all the craft service in my car. I had the playback speaker, I had the hard drives. It's like I had done the casting the week before and I had done the call sheet the night before, and I was just like, God, this is
I know. Get a big car because it's full of stuff. It's
Yeah.
full of everything.
Yeah.
That's a good tip. Yeah.
Yeah.
Your car will become a clown car very quickly.
It
It
will.
is, yeah.
I really tried to fight that, and
You got a two-door
I
car
got a
so that you
two-door
could.
coupe.
Nice.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. Being resourceful is a big thing for us.
Yeah, I think producers have to be resourceful. And one of the biggest things is like stepping out of your comfort zone to not be shy to essentially ask for anything.
Anything.
The project could require some of the most obscure asks, and you can kind of get really stressed or anxious about it. But truly, we found like if you just go to someone, you're like, hey, I know this sounds absolutely crazy, but and just make the ask because people are willing to help you. And that could be people like in the community in general or people that you're working with. Like make the ask. What's the
Yeah.
worst they can say? Oh, sorry, I don't have that.
Right.
Or no.
I mean, I will never forget when we were filming the Dan and Shay, the I Should Probably Go to Bed project, and we were filming in an old house, like an old mansion, a historic mansion, and we wanted to bring a crane in, a techno crane, and it was just really heavy, and it was like, it's gonna fall through the floor. Like, we can't bring
Bring
the
it in.
crane in. And I was like, I mean, can we like put more support beams under the floor in the basement? And the guy looked at me, he was like, the guy that runs the place, he was like, what?
Chris is like, my husband's a general contractor. He can come here and
Yeah, yeah.
put support beams
like-
under this
It's
mansion.
like, no, we're gonna come in and do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's
And then
happening.
we have to change the historic wallpaper because
Yeah.
the art director was like, this wallpaper is awful, it has to go, I have something better. And I was like,
He didn't really ask. He kind of like told them, he was like, this isn't going to work for us, so we're going to have to re-wallpaper this historic home. Sorry. And when
And
we're
they let us do
done,
it.
we'll re-wallpaper it back. So
Yeah.
don't worry. But yeah, they sometimes just a little bit of confidence and people will really just kind of give in.
yeah, I mean, I can't tell you how many times people just looked at me and been like, what?
That's the
I'm
face.
like,
That's what we get. Yeah.
Okay.
And then here's a couple of things like once you are producing that we thought were kind of like important or interesting. For us, we like to say don't knock music videos. People like to knock music
They do.
videos. That's like 80% of our work, I feel like. It's a different workflow. It's a different creative process. It moves a lot faster than a commercial. But we really enjoy them. Like
Yeah.
we both are passionate about country music, like from our childhood. So it's a connector.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there are good projects out there
Yeah.
in the music video world.
People knock them all the time, and it's a really great creative outlet for a lot of people. You get to have a little bit more fun sometimes creatively on music videos, and they're a little bit looser, and sometimes the budgets are awful, but sometimes the budgets are great, and
Yeah.
sometimes you get to work with an artist that you like.
Yeah. Do you guys ever have a hard time code switching between music video projects and commercial projects just because of
Yes.
what
Yeah.
comes with them and the
Yes.
requirements?
I
Yeah.
would say it's an interesting point, but yeah, it's
Yeah.
a totally different mindset and approach.
Yes.
Music videos are moving so quickly, you kind of you're making decisions and you're just moving ahead because the timeline is so short. Commercials, you typically have extra time, which is so nice. But they're more, there are a lot more client services for the commercials. So it's a lot of phone calls. It's a lot of communicating consistently, checking in. It's very detail oriented. Every prop matters. Every piece of wardrobe matters. And it should. That's representing their brand. So I do think it's a different approach for sure.
Yeah, that's a good question.
I know we worked on kind of both, and
Yeah.
I know, you know, our last project was like a pharmaceutical interview,
Yep.
you know, industrial project, and it was like about 10 people in Video Village, and then people remote zooming in, and
Yep.
and I feel like a lot of that project was just, you know, wrangling all of the client services, like you said, and then switching over to a music video. It's a totally different like calibration of mindset, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that can be a little interesting.
A little
jumping
bit of a
between
switch
them.
over.
It
Yeah.
is a switch over. It's definitely a mind switch for sure. So
Yeah.
that was a good question. Yeah, those are they're very different. Something that it's taken me years to learn is setting the groundwork up front about everything. From a budget, someone gives you a creative, you know the creative solicited at 75, but you get a budget and it's $200,000 when you make your budget. Be upfront about that and stand by your numbers, and if things need to change to accommodate the solicited budget, then things need to change, but don't people please and say, I think we can get it done. I think that we can get it, yeah, we can shave $100,000 off of this. Be upfront about that. Also be upfront about your availability. If someone's like, hey, can you make a budget for me tonight? I used to just be like, yeah, I think I can. And then I'd run out of time and I wouldn't be able to make it that night. And then I wouldn't be able to make it the next day. And it's been hard for me to be like, I think I can make a budget on Thursday. I have time to make a budget.
Yeah.
And just setting the groundwork for expectations up front has really become something that I'm trying to do better. And
Yeah.
it makes your life easier. And then you're not chasing your tail at the end like, oh, I gotta make this budget tonight. It's 11 p.m. Oh my gosh. And then you make a bad budget, you know, that isn't right. Or, you know, you turn in a budget that's like so under what it really costs, and then you go over budget, and then you're like, oh, I got to approach them with overages. You know?
The overages approach, that's a tough one. Yeah, sorry.
So it's something that I'm still working on, but really setting that groundwork up front.
Yeah. When a budget is misaligned, or expectation of scope from the client is just way off from what they're asking for with the budget, do you often find, is that more of a conversation, or is it more of a, like, it's going to cost this much, you know, is that an option for you guys to consider, or how do you typically navigate those conversations?
I feel like that's also kind of dependent on the client, kind of like earlier with the directors. Like, you kind of approach them all differently. So we may approach it differently when it's a music video with a video commissioner that we've worked with for a very long time than we do a commercial client that is new to us. But yeah, it's always like,
It's all about that communicating.
yeah, communicating and really letting them know, like, hey, this is a great idea, but it's just really off the mark budget-wise of what you have to spend.
Yeah. And there's always negotiating that, because it happens almost all the time.
Yeah.
And in fact, it's like sometimes I'm just making a budget and I'm like, I know I'm wasting my time right now. This is not going to be approved. But it's always the like point of conversation. Like, it's always a negotiation starter. So it's like, okay, so what can we do to make this work within the budget? And can we get a little bit more money, or maybe we take out this scene, or maybe we don't do VFX for this. So it's always a process.
Yeah. I know we just had a conversation yesterday internally with a client that, you know, they wanted to basically kind of reduce a budget component, but not really change any expectations.
Yeah.
And we had to basically just outline for them, like, we can definitely do it at this cost, but, you know, these are just some things we're gonna have to let go of.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And if we're all okay with that, then we're good, but
Yeah.
it's a consideration, so,
Yeah, for sure.
Setting those expectations,
Yep.
you know, up front. Like,
Yeah.
this is, okay, maybe we can make it work for this, but this is what it's gonna be
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another thing is, I feel like producers and other roles, you're working on multiple jobs at a time, and you're trying to balance that. But our thing is, you always need to make the director feel like they are the priority. They have your undivided attention, and so if there's a call about another job, like, you don't talk about it in front of that current director, you don't take the call in front of them, step out, go to your car, go somewhere else. They need to really feel like you are dedicated to them and that project. And the same for clients, it's just, we've heard people do it before, and people want to sound busy and people want to sound like numerous things, but we just always try to, like, this is what we're working on, let's talk about this while we're here, we'll sidebar later and talk about the other projects we have.
And we're not saying we're pretending like they have our full focus, because they do, but, sometimes something will come up that you have to handle. And that was always one of my things. It's like, if we were here at Gear 7 working on a Gear 7 job, I wouldn't just take a phone call in front of you about a different project with a different production company. It just seems strange.
Yeah, for sure.
Another thing that learning the hard way is just take responsibility when mistakes are made, and finger pointing is just
Doesn't get you anywhere.
It doesn't get you anywhere. And things happen and mistakes are made in production, and I make mistakes, we make mistakes, but when that happens, it's about finding a solution and going to the director or the client or whoever it is and saying, hey, I messed up, this happened, here's an option that I have to fix it. But not like, hey, well, the art department didn't come up with this, and so now we don't have a table here or whatever.
Sorry. Yeah, just kind of take ownership for it. People really have responded better to that than we thought that they would. It's like, you're bringing so many individual aspects together to film any project. I mean, when you think about it, you're bringing every piece of equipment, every person. So things innately, no matter how hard or how great anyone is, like, things are going to be forgotten, mistakes are going to be made, we're all human. And so I really like what Chris said, like, be solution focused. Like, admit that, hey, something slipped through the cracks, but here's a solution.
Yeah.
Does this work for you?
There was one time a couple years ago, we were working on a video, it was late, the client or the label and management that we were working with really trusted us, because we worked with them a lot, and they left their artist's whiskey, like their brand, with us to film as product placement in the video. And it was so cold and it was late and everyone wanted to go home and we were just really wanting to get out of there. And, he had left the whiskey. The next day I was like, we didn't film the whiskey.
We didn't film it anywhere.
Oh my gosh, and he trusted us. He left it with us. He was like, hey, get this in that last scene. And I went to the director and I was like, we didn't do the whiskey. I was like, I'm so sorry. Like, I was terrified because it's a really good client. And they're always really great, but it's like, they're still my client, and like, I messed up. And I talked to the director and I was like, I'm gonna email him and just let him know, like, I'm so sorry. And I did, and it was terrifying, and I was so scared, and he was not happy, but we moved on from it, and we still work with him all the time, and it just happened. So
I feel like a lot of times just confronting it right on, right? It's just like, all
don't
right,
wait, don't
nothing's
sit
changing.
on it, just
and it was the perfect opportunity for the whiskey placement too.
It really, it wasn't one of those random times where it like didn't really work. It would have been fine.
But it was like, I'm not gonna say, oh, well, so-and-so forgot. I gave it to this person and they forgot. I was just like, he handed it to me. I put it in the trailer. And, there was a few of us that knew that we were supposed to do that and we just didn't. And I was like, oh, well, here we go.
They're going to say some of the PAs accidentally drank the whiskey. And
we're like, oh,
whiskey's gone. Doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly. And I think kind of lastly, like, I would say, as a producer, try to stay calm, try to be encouraging, and just realize every single person on set deserves the same amount of respect. because truly without every person doing what they're specifically there to do, the project won't happen.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know how to be an art director. I surely can't hold a camera or light a room. Every skill set is so important, and they deserve the same amount of respect for being there. I mean, every production assistant is so important. If you are on a big job with, you know, a set of green production assistants who are just starting out and maybe aren't as experienced, like, you will feel that on set. It makes a difference.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I don't want to do the job of an AD. Like, I respect what they do. I don't want to do the job of a director. I respect what they do. I don't want to do the job of a PA. I respect what they do. And just treating everyone with the same amount of respect has really been important for us, because we really care, too. I mean, we really like the people that we work with, and we want to make sure that everyone feels that. And I heard somebody say recently, your biggest job as a leader is to stay encouraged, which really resonated with me, because for us, the vibe of the set really starts at the top. And if you are stressed and you're pissed and you're in a bad mood and you have a bad attitude, that will permeate throughout the rest of the crew. So yeah, just staying encouraged and staying positive and really rallying for your team and the job.
Let's see, what do we got next?
If you guys are still awake, I'm sorry.
I know, sorry guys, it's so boring.
long.
Well, I have some questions from the interwebs for those who have zoomed in. Is there a dream client that either of you would love to work with in the future? Or
That's an interesting question.
bucket list client?
A bucket list client.
Gosh, we did one of my bucket lists this year, or last year, I feel like.
Yeah.
Which the project's not out yet.
Yeah.
But we worked with John Carter Cash on a project with some people who were like, just, I couldn't believe it was, I was like, okay, I can be done now. So that was, when it's released, I'll let everyone know. But that was really, really special for me.
Yeah, it's kind of, I mean, I know this is like a terrible response, but like, I really feel so fortunate for the people we have worked with. Like, there are so many bucket lists, like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that happened moments already. It's kind of hard to think like what could be next. Like, you always want growth and you always want to keep going.
We've been so lucky.
So blessed already. It's
Yeah.
kind of, yeah.
It's, and I have a cheesy thing to say, but for us, our, like, the dream, the bucket list is really like working with the people, like our crews, like the directors and the ADs and the grips and gaffers. Like, that's what we love. And working for artists and famous people, like, that's so cool, and that's like an added bonus. But I will say, like, if you enter into this because that's what you want, is to work
With famous people.
with famous people, it's a lot of work
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, I don't think that's enough of a foundation necessarily to
Right.
sustain you long term. There's so many other components that go into it.
Yeah, but we're really, like, we love, what makes our jobs so fun is the people that we work with. I will say it would be awesome to work with, you know, like one of the Real Housewives would be.
Okay, you heard it here first. The Real Housewives of any
Yeah, yeah.
city. That's what we're looking to work with. So any connections out there, throw them
I
our
mean,
way.
Bring 'em in,
Dorinda,
bring 'em
we
in.
almost were able to work with Dorinda
Yeah.
from
I know.
New York, and it
Someone
didn't
was
work.
probably
Yeah.
hoping for like a huge, like Adidas or something,
Right,
but
right.
it's
No.
like
Housewives
Dorinda
works.
Medley
Yeah, yeah.
from New York.
Just gotta
Yeah,
put it.
that's who we're
Just
looking
gotta put
for.
it in the ether, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Throw
Let
it out
come.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we can open up to Q&A here in the room. Does anyone have any questions you'd like to bring to Wesley and Kristen? We got a few others online too. We can go through. Yep. Oh, we actually have a mic for you here.
As a production company, how many days do you guys kind of want on set? You know what I mean? Or a dream world of pre-production and production, post, like,
That's a good question. Yeah.
yeah, how many days? And then as far as pay, do you guys work on day rate or percentage? How does that work?
Okay. Do you want to talk about the like days on set?
Yeah. So I would say we're probably on set, 4 to 5 days out of the month.
Yeah.
normally?
I'd say on average.
Yeah. And, you know, we're working most days. We take our weekends and try to, you know, not go into the office and stuff. But being on set, you know, I think it's, again, a lot about balance. And also knowing how much you can take on and still do quality work. That's a big thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you want to take as much work as you can because you want to make as much money as you can, but you really have to balance, okay, now I've taken on so much work that everything is suffering, and I'm not giving my best to each one of these jobs. So yeah, you find your balance kind of that way, and
Yeah.
yeah.
Last year, someone reached out to us with a music video, and the director's amazing, and they're so nice, and we were like, yes, of course. And then it just felt like this wave of anxiety hit both of us of like, oh my gosh, what have we done? Like, this is the one too far for right now. And we really had like a tough conversation with each other and decided to reach out to the director. And we were like, hey, like, we're really sorry, but I think we spoke too soon. And I really don't think we have the bandwidth right now to take this project on. And we reached out to a couple other producers and found someone great who was available and passed their name along. And the video turned out really great. They did a great job. It just wasn't, we would have been a disservice to them if we had stayed on that project.
Yeah.
But budget-wise, it's kind of different. I would say the majority of the time it's percentage-based. The producer and PM are in on a percentage of the budget. On some commercial work, it is more day rate based. But yeah, I would say most of the time it's a percentage.
Yeah.
Great. Any other questions? There we go.
Hi. Working as a team, does one of you usually take like a production manager or production coordinator role, or are you kind of both just tag teaming producing?
Say we really tag team it.
Yeah, it's interesting because like Chris was saying at the beginning, like there are certain skill sets that each one of us are just like excel in, the other one excels in the other ones. We kind of like have this weird understanding on every job of like, these are the things that Chris leans into and takes on. These are the things that I lean into and take on, instead of kind of like dividing it up. Like
Yeah.
the producer would typically do this, the PM would typically do this.
There's no set way that we do it. It's just, and we're constantly checking in with each other. Like, what can I help you do on this? What
I
can I
know.
help you do on this? So yeah, there's definitely not like a formula that we have written down, but we are in, again, constant communication with each other.
Yeah, I think when we bring on like a coordinator to a project, like we're trying to get better at laying the groundwork for that. Like, these are the expectations, these are the things we would love for you to help us with on this. And giving that person like a clear definition of what we're looking for. But internally it kind of is this strange, understood ebb and flow. I know that's not helpful, but.
Question from the internet here. Any crazy conflicts or situations you had to overcome on set? I'm sure you've had a bunch,
There's a
but
few.
any that stand out to you that was like, oh, that was a great takeaway, that was a good solution?
Yeah.
There's one we talked about yesterday, that Kelsey Ballerini video that we filmed in Knoxville. We were doing COVID testing on the job, and that is when we learned that you test talent
Days.
days
Prior.
before, because our sweet actress who is playing the young version of Kelsey Ballerini showed up, got tested, and was positive.
The morning of.
The morning of the shoot. And you're out of town, you're in Knoxville, like this person is driven in, like they've traveled, all of this stuff, and it was figuring out how to approach the director about that. Like, essentially, she's in every scene we're filming today, and we're all here, so what are we gonna do? Talking to the AD about how do we pivot the schedule, like what can we capture today with the people we have, and finding a new actress. And
A matter of moments.
we had a
literally. It's like-
casting director reaching out instantly to find replacement options,
Yeah.
and the next day we had someone because we were filming for 3 days. But yeah, that was a big lesson in learning to plan ahead
Yeah.
in the COVID testing world.
Yeah, I mean, looking back, it's like, why would we have ever
Not done that. But we didn't, and
we didn't,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a tricky one. I feel like we had a similar situation on one of our recent shoots. I think it was like maybe the day before, but photographer tested positive.
That's right.
And
yeah.
then, to y'all's credit, I think by the time it had come to me, y'all already worked through a solution. You're like, all right, the assistant's taking over. She's on a Zoom with the photographer. They're navigating all of this. And I just took it to client with like, this happened. Here's the solution. We were moving on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And let's chat through it further if we need to. But yeah.
We kind of want to lock it down, lock the problem down
Yeah.
before it gets anywhere else.
Right.
We were on a job. The director also owned the production company. One of the grips like drove the truck into a parked car on the street. And, you know, like this director's really involved in his company and all of that, but essentially we spent all day making sure he didn't know about it and like calling his insurance agent, like moving the truck, calling the police, like,
Yeah.
and then at the end of the day, I'm like, how do you feel the day went? Alex, like, how do you feel? And he's like, it's a great day. I was like, okay, awesome. I'm like, well, a grip truck crashed, but your insurance is covering it and everyone's fine, you know?
I
So-
will say, and I don't think that this is true of everything, but in production, as long as nobody gets hurt, it is true that tragedy plus time equals humor,
Yeah.
because like you are so stressed in these moments, and like, you know, I've cried and just
Cried.
cried,
Mhm. I've cried, yeah.
and then you
Mhm.
look back and it's like you at some point laugh about it, and you're like,
You have
"God,
to.
that
I've
was
cried over
horrible."
a stack of time cards. Like
And-
doing a stack of time cards, I'm like, there's so many.
One time I think you might have cried when you thought that we forgot the fogger on an
I
overnight.
cried over a lawnmower fogger before. It was an overnight shoot. They're calling for this lawnmower fogger on set, and like, we're at this fair, like it's such a cool thing, and I run to the truck, and there's no fogger. And I'm like, the vendor's closed. Like, we're just here with no fogger.
There's-
I'm like, Chris, switch to 2 on the radio. I'm like, I think. She's like, what are you trying to say? Like, what's going on? And through my tears, I told her what I was looking for, and she was like, it's on set. Someone already got it.
I think maybe you cried harder in such joy.
I
that-
cried harder in joy that it was actually there. I ordered it. That was great. Yeah.
Yeah, and then advice for shooting music videos, or I guess any product that has a piano.
Oh, wow.
Do you want to tell the story of when you pulled a piano bench out of your ass in the middle of the forest?
For some reason, people who deliver pianos do not deliver a piano bench for the person to sit on to play it. I don't know why they don't think that should just come with it. Like, I guess everyone wants to be standing playing a piano. But we're in Breckenridge in this like beautiful national forest in the snow. We've brought this piano out there.
We had to lug the piano like
on plywood across like this field to get it there.
leapfrogging plywood to get it into the middle of this area that was gorgeous.
That the director wanted, yep.
Yes, filled with, it was so much snow. I mean, it was so pretty. It was the Dan and Shay Tequila music video.
Yep. And we're like 5 minutes out from filming this scene, and it's freezing cold, and there's no piano bench
Like,
for
nobody
Shay
got
to
a
sit
bench.
on. And we're like, what do we do? And I like get in the rental car, and I like remember seeing this like ski shop like up the road somewhere.
A teepee.
And I haul ass down there in this car, and I run into a local teepee where someone was making handmade furniture. I like bust in this teepee. I'm like, hey, I know this is so random, but we're filming a music video, and we need a bench. We need a bench for him to sit on. And there was this beautiful bench sitting there. And I said, can I borrow this? And they said, sure. They didn't know my name. They didn't have any of my information. This sweet woman in a teepee gave me this bench, and I said, I'll bring it back, I promise. Hurled it in the car and drove all the way back.
I mean,
And we had a bench for it, and later I brought it back to that sweet lady.
so if you ever watch the Dan and Shay Tequila video, just know that Wesley is behind the scenes, frantically driving through the snow. Fast forward years later, same director, same artist.
Same artist.
We're in the middle of the desert.
With a piano.
Wheel the piano out. About 5 minutes from filming.
No
Where's
bench.
the bench? Where's the bench?
No bench, guys.
No bench. Again, no bench.
So yeah,
It's a pro tip.
it's a
So-
pro tip. Just get a bench.
Request
Yeah,
Get the
keep one in
bench.
your car. I don't know what to tell you, but you're gonna have to have a bench somewhere.
All right. Any other questions? Here we go.
We come from agency production side, which we share a lot of the same responsibilities, as you guys probably know. But it sometimes is an interesting dynamic when you end up with like 3 people with a production title on set. What's your kind of ideal dynamic when you're working with an agency or someone who also has a producer on the staff, and kind of how you share those responsibilities?
It's a good question.
Actually, I mean, because we've done that scenario
Yeah.
before too, where a lot of times from our standpoint, you know, I'll take kind of point with client side, like working in Village with agency and the brand, and then there's general like kind of insulation that maybe is helpful sometimes between that and production, and then having the ability to kind of cross over as needed has been really helpful
Yeah.
in the past. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think we kind of just like project dependent, figure out which one of us wants to be more client focused and kind of like focus on that avenue while the other person is focused on the production at hand, like what's going on. So one of us will be in Video Village or, you know, leading up to and prep, like more, be heavier in communicating, just to kind of like even subtly build that relationship
Yeah.
and those indicators like, okay, I'm gonna be the point person on this. I'm the one answering the emails and making the calls and all of that fun stuff. And the other person kind of handles the logistics production-wise more.
Right,
Yeah.
but we're always both on the communication just for visibility and just so everybody is aware of what's
Yeah.
going on.
Do you guys have a typical split between like who's handling casting, who's handling location, you know?
On that, yes.
Breakdown? Yeah.
Because I hate looking for locations, and Chris is really great at it. So that's her thing.
I hate casting. Hate it.
She gets stressed being around talent and
I do,
actors
I do.
and extras, and so I will do that, yes.
Yeah.
Nice. Any other questions? You had one right there? Yep. Oh,
Hey, how's it going? Josh
You're
from
next.
there. Question, when it comes to commercials and music videos, has there ever been a moment where you've completed the project and there had to be some reshoots? And if so, how do you allocate budget for that? Do you allocate that when you're presenting your budget for reshoots, or is that something that you have to tap into the budget once it's been requested?
So some clients want a contingency like that up front, and some don't. It just kind of depends on why you're having to do the reshoot. Like if it's a weather issue, a lot of times you can budget for a contingency in that way, which is nice, but it's hard to estimate that up front. So mostly it's a conversation after the fact. Like, okay, it started a torrential downpour in the middle of the day that nobody saw coming, which has happened to us.
That's happened to us.
And so then after the fact, you know, and you want to be really sensitive also. You don't want to like blow it out of the water and be like, it's going to cost you this much money.
Yeah.
So yeah, you want to be really sensitive to the fact that they're having to spend more money than they originally wanted to.
Mhm.
cool. We have time for one last question. I think you had one up around here. You have the question.
What makes you excited to work with the director, and what are some signs leading up to a project that makes you dread working with them?
Dun, dun, dun.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
I mean, I know I keep saying this, but we really we kind of have like a group of directors that we work for.
Mhm.
And we really like all of them, so we look forward, really, we only look forward to working with them. It's more about the project maybe that we would dread.
Yeah, I mean, we have a different connection sometimes to the project and the creative. Like sometimes we really love the creative, and that drives us as well, you know. Other times, like you're just not as connected, and so you're being driven by the director and the client, you know, to really just make it happen. I would say for me, I'm not a big proponent of like yelling and like this big energy coming in a room and being dominating. So if we're working with a new director that is really coming at us with that, it probably will go on the list of like, maybe next time if we get a call, we really reconsider saying yes.
Yeah, eventually, like, you get to a point where we don't dread working with anyone,
anyone.
because you kind of fish it out.
Mhm.
And so, you go through and you hustle and you grind and you do the ones that you don't want to for a while, but eventually it's like you find your tribe, and yeah.
The group that works with you. Yeah.
I mean, I will say I dread overnight productions. Those are
Yeah,
dreadful.
yeah. Directors who write overnight treatments, those are tough.
Yeah.
Those are tough for everybody.
Those are dreadful.
Special breed,
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
sure. Well, great. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you both, Wesley and Christen. Really appreciate it. And we'll be hanging out here for a little bit, so if anyone has any additional questions, you're welcome to come up and ask those directly. And we'll be providing tours in the studio, some tours of Gear 7's production offices next door as well. So thank you again for all coming. Appreciate it. Here.
Thanks, guys. Good job.